Have you ever stood on the brink of a deadline, your heart pounding, your hands cold, while a seductive whisper in your head still insists there's time? You tell yourself you work best under pressure, that this stress will sharpen your mind, turning it into an instrument of extreme focus. And then, as the clock ticks down the final hours, you plunge into a frenzy of action, completing what needs to be done in a haze of adrenaline and exhaustion. Task finished, you breathe a sigh of relief, but soon after, a vague promise is uttered. Next time will be different. But that next time arrives and the cycle repeats, a familiar dance between urgency and avoidance, between intention and helplessness. What is really happening here? Is it simply laziness, or is it a sophisticated defense mechanism of the mind, designed to protect you from something even more frightening than the pressure of an all-nighter? To understand the roots of this chronic procrastination, we need to move away from the surface of self-reproach and dive into the murky waters of behavioral and emotional psychology. There, we don't find a lazy individual, but a person grappling with a complex internal conflict. One of the most powerful theoretical frameworks for decoding this comes from humanistic psychology, specifically Carl Rogers' concept of conditions of worth. Rogers believed we grow up feeling that the love and acceptance of others and ultimately of ourselves depends on meeting certain conditions. We must be excellent, perfect, we must not make mistakes. When an important task appears, it is not just a task, it becomes an opportunity to prove our worth or a terrifying threat that will reveal our inadequacy. The brain, in an effort to protect the fragile self-esteem, seeks to avoid the evaluative situation altogether. Procrastination, in this case, becomes an avoidance strategy for psychological pain. It creates a saving grace. I didn't do well, not because I'm incapable, but because I didn't have enough time. Failure due to lack of effort feels much safer than failure despite full effort because it doesn't touch the core of our identity. However, not all procrastination stems from a fear of evaluation. Another perspective comes from neuroscience and the brain's reward system theory. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, both physical and emotional. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, impulse control, and long-term decision-making, is often overridden by the limbic system, the center of emotion and desire, which cares only for immediate rewards. When you think about starting a large, complex, and challenging project, your prefrontal cortex paints a picture of the future goal. But your limbic system immediately sees the discomfort, boredom, confusion, or anxiety that first step brings. So it offers a wonderful alternative. Check social media, watch an episode, tidy your desk, anything that provides a little instant dopamine without the discomfort. Procrastination in this context is a temporary victory of the pleasure-seeking brain over the planning brain. Every time you choose distraction, you reinforce that neural pathway, making it even harder to choose the difficult task next time, deepening the trap of procrastination. And then there is a third, more subtle psychological layer concerning our relationship with ourselves and time, illustrated by the theory of temporal self-continuity. We tend to see our future self as a stranger, a different version of us, with more energy, more discipline, and more willingness to face the tasks our present self does not want to do. When you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," you are essentially delegating the emotional burden to someone you don't really know. This cognitive disconnect creates a gap where responsibility is easily dismissed. The future self will deal with the stress, the rush, the consequences. But when tomorrow becomes today, you find yourself still the same person, with the same fears and reluctance, and the cycle begins anew. Procrastination, from this angle, is a refusal to accept the continuity of the self through time. It is a form of temporary self-deception to escape the discomfort of the present. So, what is the mysterious drive to finally start acting at the last minute? It is often the collapse of illusions. When time runs out, the pleasant alternatives disappear, and the fear of immediate consequences, failure, embarrassment, loss, finally overcomes the vague fear of demonstrating competence. The pressure of the deadline narrows your vision, eliminates all distractions, and forces your limbic system to cooperate, because now the pain of inaction is even greater than the pain of action. That final work frenzy is not an ideal work state. It is the mind's survival mechanism, a release from the paralysis caused by internal conflict. It shows that your inherent capability was always there, but it was obscured by a narrative of fear and a power struggle between different parts of your mind. Escaping this spiral does not lie in simple time management advice, but in compassionate understanding. It's about realizing that when you procrastinate, you are not broken. You are reacting in ways your mind has been shaped to protect itself. The first step is to observe that mechanism without judgment. I'm avoiding this because I'm afraid of what it might say about me, or my pleasure-seeking brain is trying to pull me away from discomfort. By naming these invisible forces, you reclaim a measure of control. You begin to be able to dialogue with your fear, soothe it with the acceptance that imperfection is part of being human, and break down the colossal task into smaller, less threatening steps, not big enough to trigger a full-scale avoidance mechanism. You learn to treat your future self as a friend, not a drudge, by making kind choices for them right now. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate procrastination entirely, for it is a human trait, but to change your relationship with it, from a secret enemy to a signal, an indicator that something in the task or in your self-perception needs care and attention.